everyone, in this video we'll be going to discuss about Ida Jean Orlando's theory, together with my group mates Ayumi Aya Serona, Fades Romano, Royce Ricarte, Ida Janet Salem, Miljan Santander, and me, Jamaica Samama.
Ida Jean Orlando was a first-generation Irish American. She was born on August 12, 1926. She dedicated her life to study in nursing and graduated in 1947. In 1947, she received a nursing diploma from the Flower Fifth Avenue Hospital School of Nursing in New York. In 1951, she received a Bachelor of Science degree in Public Health Nursing from St. John's University in Brooklyn, New York. And in 1954, Orlando received her Master of Arts degree in Mental Health Consultation from Teachers College, Columbia University. After receiving her master's degree in 1954, Orlando went to Yale University School of Nursing in New Haven, Connecticut as an associate professor of mental health psychiatric nursing for 8 years. She was a project investigator of a National Institute of Mental Health grant entitled Integration of Mental Health Consult in a Basic Nursing Curriculum. The research from this grant leads to Orlando's development of the deliberative nursing process public in the dynamic nursing-patient relationship. Influence of that theorist. Ida Jean Orlando developed her theory from a study conducted at Yale University School of Nursing, integrating mental health concepts into a basic nursing curriculum. She proposed that patients have their own meaning and interpretation of situation. Therefore, nurses must validate their interferences and analyze with patient before concluding. The theory was published in the Dynamic Nurse-Patient Relationship Function Process and Principles in 1961. Her book proposed a contribution to concern about the nurse-patient relationship, the nurse professional role and identity, and the knowledge developed distinct to nursing. Orlando's theory stresses the reciprocal relationship between patient and nursed. What the nurse and what the patient say and do affects them both. She views nursing's professional function as finding out and meeting that patient intermediate need for help. Through observation, Orlando recorded between the nurse and the patient. She categorized them in two labels, which is good nursing and bad nursing. Good nurses focus on the intermediate verbal and non-verbal behavior of the patient. Bad nurses focused on anything unrelated to the patient's behavior.
Deliberative nursing process theory. One important thing that nurses do is converse with the clients and let them know what the plan of care for the day is going to be. However, regardless of how well thought out a nursing care plan is for a client, unexpected problems to the client's recovery may arise at any time. With this, the job of the nurse is to know how to deal with those problems so the client can continue to get back and reclaim his or her well-being. Ida Jean Orlando developed her deliberative nursing process that allows nurses to formulate an effective nursing care plan that can also be easily adopted when and if any complexity comes up with the client. Ida Jean Orlando's nursing theory stresses the reciprocal relationship between the client and the nurse. It emphasizes the critical importance of the client's participation in the nursing process. Orlando also considered nursing as a distinct profession and separated it from medicine, where nurses as determining nursing action rather than being prompted by physician's orders, organizational orders, and past personal experiences. She believed that the physician's orders are for clients and not for nurses. She proposed that, quote, patients have their own meanings and interpretations of situations, and therefore nurses must validate their inferences and analysis with patients before drawing conclusions. End quote. Ida Jean Orlando's goal is to develop a theory of effective nursing practice. The theory explains that the role of the nurse is to find out and meet the client's immediate needs for help. According to the theory, all client behavior can be a cry for help. Through this, the nurse's job is to find out the nature of the patient's distress and provide the help he or she needs.
This diagram shows that the action process could be in secret or in open disclosure. As you can see here, the action process in person-to-person contact functioning only in secret because the observable action of the perceptions, thoughts, and feelings of the person are not yet directly available or explored by the other person. However, it can only be available and explored in the process of creating a rapport relation that the other person or the nurse's initiative to start to the patient. If the nurse has already built a rapport relationship to the patient, it can now be observed that there is now an action process called an action by open disclosure. This refers to the two arrows you can see in a diagram, where the perception, thoughts, and feelings of the person or the patient are now directly available to the perception of the other person or the nurse through the observable action. That's why it is called the dynamic nurse-patient relationship.
Deliberative nursing process theory. Describe her model as revolving around the 5 major interrelated concepts, which are the function of professional nursing, organizing principle, presenting behavior or patient problematic situation, immediate reaction or internal response, nursing process discipline or investigation in the patient needs, improvement or the resolution of the patient situation. The theory was published in the Dynamic Nurse-Patient Relationship Function, Process and Principles in 1961. She proposed that patients have their own meanings and interpretations of situations, and therefore nurse must validate their inferences and analysis with patient before concluding. Stresses the reciprocal relationship between patient and nurse. What the nurse and the patient says and do affects them both. She views nursing professional function as finding out and meeting the patient's immediate need for help. 5 stages of the deliberative nursing process. Assessment. In the assessment stage, the nurse completes a holistic assessment of the client's needs. This is done without taking the reason for the encounter into consideration. The nurse uses a nursing framework to collect both subjective and objective data about the client. Diagnosis. The diagnosis stage uses the nurse's clinical judgment about health problems. The diagnosis can then be confirmed using links to defining characteristics, related factors, and risk factors found in the client's assessment. Planning. The planning stage addresses each of the problems identified in the diagnosis. Each problem is given a specific goal or outcome, and each goal or outcome is given nursing interventions to help achieve the goal. By the end of the stage, the nurse will have a nursing care plan. Implementation. In the implementation stage, the nurse begins using the nursing care plan. Evaluation. The nurse looks at the progress of the client toward the goals set in the nursing care plan. Changes can be made to the nursing care plan based on how well or how poorly the client is progressing toward the goals. If any new problems are identified in the evaluation stage, they can be addressed, and the process starts over again for those specific problems.
What is metaparadigm? Metaparadigm of this theory is a set of concepts that are given attention with which a discipline is concerned of. This includes the person, the environment, health, and nursing. Person. Orlando emphasizes the individuality of clients. She highly stresses in her theory that Patients have their own meanings and interpretations of situations, and therefore, nurses must validate their inferences and analysis with patients before concluding. But in application with the nature of metaparadigm, the person that is referred to this theory is given focus to the patients who are in need of healthcare. Those individuals who cannot carry out medical treatment alone may be due to their health condition or disability, and individuals who are experiencing distress or a mental health condition. For the environment, Orlando didn't specify much about environment. However, observation and further research were done by us. So here are our findings that are relevant to Ida Jean Orlando's metaparadigm of the environment. This refers to the setting where environment the patient is that prevents them from communicating their needs, their access to the healthcare, or a setting that causes or may trigger trauma to the patient, causing negative reaction from them, and situations that causes them to feel helpless and distressed with the factors. Taking note, it is important to take consideration and make a proper arrangement on how to approach and provide the right health care to patients, and the cadence around with comfort while they are under the nurse's care. For health, this theory aims for nurses to be determined and meet the immediate needs of the patients. For one, to improve their condition through attending to the need for comfort and relieving stress that is expressed by the patients. This is done by observing, listening, and confirming their needs, covering all aspects of their health, physical and mental. Lastly, for nursing metaparadigm, as a nurse, you should be responsive to an individual's need for help on immediate situation and have the effort to be interactive with your patients. As much as possible, build a bond, gain the trust, and have a rapport relationship with your patient so that they can express themselves freely without feeling restricted or a burden. A nurse should have a skill that uses direct and indirect observation of a patient's behavior to discover or determine any signs of distress and discomfort, which is the basis of our nursing care to wrap up the end of the metaparadigm. The goal of this theory is for nurses to be able to provide the quality of healthcare and improve the sense of well-being of a patient.
Case scenario, we will tackle about the situation and give a nursing process for us to determine the problem and help meet the patient needs. Miss Clem, 19 years old, appears at Seattle Hospital with attempted suicide. 3 hours ago, she slashed her wrist. Miss Clem lived with her auntie because her mother working in another country. Upon history taking, her auntie confessed that Miss Clem was a rape victim. That is why she tried to end her by cutting her wrist. Later on, her auntie said that Miss Clem was anxious, having a hard time sleeping and nightmare. Her auntie reported that Miss Clem refused to eat and drink these past few days. Her physical assessment revealed signs of symptoms of physical trauma and depression. She complains of swelling around her wound and fever. The client's wound shows symptoms of infection. Her endoscopy shows a stomach ulcer and her temperature is 38.5.
Good morning, ma'am. I am Ayumi Ayasarana, your nurse for today. Here's your breakfast. You need to eat your breakfast, ma'am, because this will help you feel better and prevent your ulcers from getting worse. I'm sorry that this was done to you, but this is not your fault. It's okay if you don't want to express or say anything yet. Tell me if there's something bothering you and how can I help? because I will always be here. I know you've been through a very hard and difficult time in your life, but you will overcome it. Because hurting yourself isn't the answer or the only way. Your life is very precious. There is more in life than this. I know it's hard, but eventually you're going to make it, and I'm here to help you make it.
I feel so ashamed, guilty to everything.
You did not bring the assault on yourself, and you have nothing to be ashamed about. Just remember that your attacker is the only one to blame. Don't beat yourself up for assuming that your attacker a decent human being. You're ashamed, not you.
Thank you, nurse.
Hi, I have something for you. This is a journal. You can write anything what is in your mind when you wake up or before going to bed because journaling helps you slow down. This will help decrease distractions, overthinking, and worrying, and it allows you to fall asleep faster too. So I will just leave this here and write something that you like to thank for in your life before going to bed. Okay?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, nurse.
I am here for the evaluation. How are you, ma'am?
After all you've done for me, I was able to feel physically sick. I regained trust, improved my daily functioning, found an adequate social support, get adequate sleep, eat balanced, healthy diet. I can cope up feelings of guilt and shame. I am motivated to stay alive, and I learned that I should only focus on the present than dwell on horrific things. And fast, also, I learned to accept and face what has occurred. And I was able to well demonstrate healthy, effective ways of dealing with my problems and distinguish between ideas of self-harm and taking an action on those ideas. Thank you so much, nurse. I am truly grateful for everything.
I am honored too for everything you shared to me. Congratulations, ma'am. You overcome it.
Nursing care plan to the patient. In assessment, the nurse completes a holistic assessment of the patient's needs, utilizes nursing framework to collect both objective and subjective data about the patient. Subjective data. The patient was a rape victim. The patient attempted suicide by cutting her wrist. The patient complains of swelling around her wound. Patient refuses to eat. Had a fever. Patient was anxious and having a hard time sleeping and had a nightmare. Objective data. Patient physical assessment revealed signs and symptoms of physical trauma and depression. Her wound shows symptoms of infection. Patient endoscopy shows stomach ulcer and body temperature 38.5. Diagnosis. Nurses use their clinical judgment about health problems, and diagnosis can then be confirmed using links to define characteristics, related factors, and risk factors found in the patient's assessment. Rape trauma syndrome related to sexual assault as evidenced by physical trauma, suicide attempt, nightmare, and sleep disturbances of the patient. And also, imbalanced nutrition, less than body requirements. In planning, the nurse addresses each of the problems identified in a diagnosis, and the problems are given specific goals, and each goal is given nursing interventions to help achieve it. The nurse will have the nursing care plan. After 8 hours of nursing intervention, the patient will be able to feel positive and confident in carrying out his or her life plans, stay with a friend or family if the patient still has the potential for suicide, communicate with her family and friends and express her feelings or emotion, avoid from attempting suicide, remain safe while in the hospital with the aid of nursing intervention and support if she is a patient in a hospital, have connections to local self-help organizations, consult to a community-based rape victim advocate in the emergency department of crisis center, decrease body heat production promoting comfort to the patient, maintain normal body temperature, state the physical symptoms, that is sleep disturbances, poor appetite and physical trauma have subsided within 3 to 5 months. Receive stage-appropriate wound care and have a risk factors under control to prevent further ulcers, experience healing of pressure ulcers, and experience pressure reduction. Sleep properly and overcome her nightmare, know and understand the risk of suicide, cope up with her problems, join a counseling session, restore her hope, remain free of infection as evidenced by normal vital signs and absence of signs and symptoms of infection. Early detection of infection allows for timely treatment. Next is implementation, where the nurse begins the nursing care plan and the nursing care plan is put into action. The nurse will do the following: establish rapport, provide strict confidentiality, approach the patient in a non-judgmental manner, encourage the patient to consider treatment and evaluation for sexually transmitted diseases before leaving the hospital, advise the patient to communicate with her family and friends and express her emotions to them to avoid depression, educate the patient how to handle her problems without hurting herself, encourage the patient to discuss openly about her feelings, and work with her to come up with alternate ways to deal with disappointment, anger, and frustration, provide a safe environment free from things that may harm the patient, advise the family to assist or help the patient to restore her self-esteem and give her hope by telling her encouraging words, encourage the patient to consult the psychiatry and help her know and understand the importance of consultation with the psychiatry. Provide a comfortable environment for the patient, such as giving a comfortable blanket to warm the patient. Examine the patient's nutritional state, including her weight and whether she is losing weight. Educate the patient on how important it is to take 3 meals a day and take nutritional food to prevent her from getting an ulcer. Educate the patient about the risk factors under control to prevent further ulcers. Advise the patient to maintain a consistent daily rest and sleeping routine. Encourage the patient to write a journal regarding problems before sleeping to set aside problems before going to sleep. Maintain strict asepsis for dressing changes in wound care. Ensure that any articles used are properly disinfected or sterilized before use.
The environmental aspects of Nightingale's theory remain a significant component of current nursing care until today. These concepts, even from the 21st century, showed significance as the global society encounters new issues of disease control. For instance, sanitation and water treatment somehow control sources of diseases and sicknesses. In addition, environmental concerns are also utilized by modern architecture. For instance, the term sick building syndrome, nurses need to ask whether buildings and constructions meet Nightingale's principle of good ventilation and lighting. Moreover, the disposal of waste such as chemicals and other toxic substances also pose challenges to healthcare professionals to reconsider the concepts of a healthy environment. In places such as clinics and hospitals, the control for room temperature for a client is also considered. Also, that same environment, though it contains technology that helps for recovery, may create uncomfortable noise that would affect the healing process. Nurses are looking at these problems by doing different studies and research as they continue to affect the healthcare system. Education in the Academe Nightingale's Principle of Nursing Training developed a universal pattern for early nursing training schools, beginning with Santo Tomas Hospital and King College Hospital in London. Using Nightingale model of nursing training, these experimental schools were established in the United States in 1873, such as Deliberative Hospital in New York, New Haven Hospital in Connecticut, and Massachusetts Hospital in Boston. The influence of this training system and many of its principles are still apparent in today's nursing programs. Nightingale firmly considered that better practice could result only from better education. She believed that measurement of the art of nursing could not be accomplished through licensing examinations, but she used testing methods including case studies for nursing trainees at Santo Tomas Hospital. Research. Nightingale's expertise in scientific inquiry and statistics continues to assist at defined nursing research. She was remarkably efficient and resourceful in her capability to gather and analyze data. Also, her ability to graphically represent data was first identified in the polar diagrams. Her empirical approach to deal with problems of healthcare delivery is also evident in her various writings. In addition, her concepts have also served as the basis for current research in aid to modern nursing science and practice in different countries. Lastly, she also used brief case studies, possible patterns, to demonstrate various concepts she discussed in Notes of Nursing. Acceptance by the nursing community can be applied to nursing practice because the primary role of community health nurses is to provide treatment to patients. Additionally, community health nurses offer education to community members about maintaining their health so that they can decrease the occurrence of disease and deaths, infectious and sexually transmitted diseases.